and there will be a parent who elects to put their child in the back seat of the car to send them to sleep. And someone will make that decision, and they will have to base that on some level of trust, and we've got to build that trust.
In this episode of Embedded Insiders, we're joined by Jonathan Moore, Director of Advanced Systems at Exida, and John Ellis, USA President and Head of Product at CodeThink. These industry leaders share their insights on the future of automotive technology, focusing on software engineering for 2025, along with key discussions on trust, safety, and the evolving industry standards. But first, Rich and Ken are back from Embedded World 2025 in Nuremberg to share highlights for those who couldn't attend. They'll cover the annual Best in Show Awards, hands-on workshops, and emerging technologies shaping the future.
Hello, engineers and developers and friends. Welcome to another episode of Embedded Insiders Podcast. I'm Ken Briota, your editor-in-chief for Embedded Computing Design, and I'm here with Rich Nass, as always, our fearless leader. Hey, Rich.
Hello, Ken. How are you?
I'm very well, although having been away from home for as long as I have now, I'm looking forward to rolling into my own house at the end of this week.
Well, I know you were in Nuremberg last week. Where are you this week?
I am in San Jose and surrounding environs for NVIDIA GTC and friends. Meeting with lots of folks, chatting with them. It's been beautiful Northern California spring weather the whole time I'm here. So I am deeply missing my opportunities to go out into the hills and disappear into the wilderness. That's the kind of weather we're having today.
Very nice. Glad to hear it. So let's talk about last week, and we'll save this week for next week. How's that for a confusing start?
Well, when will now be then? Soon.
Exactly. The last week was a big one for us.
Embedded World.
Embedded World's pretty much the most important show of the year for us, and in my opinion, the most important week for us. It's where our entire, well, not entire community, but the biggest contingent of our community gathers for a week to communicate, discuss, exchange ideas, learn, talk about products, and come to our cocktail party and see who won our Best in Show awards.
Yeah, that's right. And ideally, do some business, I would hope. Some of them signed some deals and things. But yeah, Best in Show was great this year, wasn't it? Huge entrance. Huge number of entrants, right? It was more than we've ever had.
Yeah, we've been saying that for a few years now, that we've had more entries than ever before, and that trend continues. So hopefully that will continue.
I know the judging was tough this year, but we really had some really interesting stuff win. I thought that everybody who took home one of the awards this year really did something cool. Some neat. Yep. Sometimes they were incremental improvements. Sometimes it was a new product, but man, very cool.
Yeah, from the MCUs to the IoT stuff to the boards and systems, even some analog, if you can believe that.
One thing I was surprised by was how big the memory and storage category was. We had a ton of entries there. It seems like folks are really focused on memory and storage right now.
Well, yeah, that's all part of the whole AI bubble. You just need not just more memory, but much higher performance memory to keep that thing going.
Absolutely. And like, as would be no surprise to anyone, AI was definitely one of the big stories at Embedded World. Lots of folks talking about how they're actually putting AI into the field. I think I was personally pretty gratified to see a lot of very tactical AI implementations where I was talking to folks where it was small AI. We're doing AI at the edge. We're managing a really tailored data set and algorithm. And sometimes there's a language model, but it's a very specific one. Sometimes it's generative, but based on very specific data. And I find that to be probably the best execution on current technology.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it was, I don't know if gratifying is the right word, but I'll say gratifying to see that with respect to AI, we've moved from the talking about it stage to the implementing it stage. And we don't have a whole lot of shipping end products yet. And I think that'll be what we see next year. But people are down in the trenches doing their designs.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't know. I mentioned incremental improvements in the Best in Show, and I think that may have been like the watchword of Embedded World this year. There was, I didn't see, and maybe you did. I didn't see a lot of huge leaps forward. I saw a lot of really interesting iterations, faster, more efficient, smaller, that kind of stuff, which is good. I'm saying this because I think that's responsible engineering and good development in the industry.
Yeah, of all those descriptions you just threw out, the one that sticks with me is more efficient, and that's where we need to be. If you can't do it with less power, less memory, less processing power, it's probably not going to fly.
Yeah, especially in like HPC and data center, a lot of those guys are looking for energy and memory efficiency for sure.
Yes, that is
Again,
definitely true.
Yeah, again, driven by AI to some extent, but also just all the edge and cloud processing all has to run through data center at some point.
Yep. And well, I certainly don't want to have the political discussion because that's not where we look to educate our audience. That came up a lot in our discussions, the whole thing about where you manufacture and paying the tariffs and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. I know Pat Hopper, who doesn't get very shouted out very often on this podcast, told me he had a ton of conversations, and I had several as well, with folks talking about diversifying their manufacturing supply chain, opening or contracting with plants all across the world so that they're never in a position where they have a single stream.
Yep, I would definitely agree with that. So next week we'll be talking about GTC. Is that the plan?
Yeah, I think so. There's, I think, going to be lots to talk about. I've had a bunch of meetings already this week, and a bunch more today before I hit the air tomorrow to come back home. But
Okay.
It should be an exciting day. There was a lot of buzz about NVIDIA's CEO Jensen Huang's keynote yesterday. That's always a big event. He talked about Blackwell. He talked about robotics. He talked about a bunch of stuff that there's some buzz about. For me, again, it seems pretty incremental, which may be where the industry is in general right now. But I don't see a big leap forward, and we'll talk more about this next week. But you may hear in my voice, I'm a little bit of a Blackwell skeptic. So ready for my hot takes.
Very good. I look forward to hearing about that, and you travel safe.
All right. We'll see you soon, Rich, and folks out there listening. Make sure you're subscribed. If somebody sent this to you and you haven't subscribed yet, get on it, man.
Now, here's Jonathan Moore of Exida and John Ellis of CodeThink.
Yeah, well, hello. My name is Jonathan Moore. I have been working for Exida for it's 8 years now as their Director of Advanced Products, and we are a world-recognized organization that provides safety and cybersecurity certifications to make sure that your hardware and your software is sufficiently safe and sufficiently protected against cyber attack that we might want to rely on it, especially in the event that there is a failure that we want to avoid hurting people as a result of that. So that's everything from automobiles. Obviously, a failure of the electronics on the car can lead to death. We also do a lot of work in the process industry, the mining industry, and other industries around the world where you've got to rely on the software to save lives.
Awesome.
And my name is John Ellis, president at CodeThink. CodeThink is a Manchester-based firm established in 2007. focused on delivering software at scale into heavily regulated industries, including the automotive industry. And our predominant flavor is open source. So all things related to open source. And we focus very specifically on the integration and construction of software at scale for products that really are certified, for example, by Jonathan and his team in these highly regulated industries.
Awesome. So whoever wants to go first, for 2025, what do either of you believe will be the defining features for automotive technology in your respective perspectives?
So this is John. I'll take a stab first. For 2025, and I think actually and beyond, automotive technology is going to be defined by software longevity, the ability to ensure vehicles remain safe, functional, and performant, not just at launch, but years and decades down the road. The shift to continuous software updates, AI-driven optimizations, modular architectures, they're going to demand a radical rethinking of how we develop, construct, integrate, validate, and maintain vehicle software. Moreover, I think the recent UN ECE 155 rule, along with the EU's Cyber Resilience Act, otherwise known as a CRA, both now in effect, will favor those who master software lifecycle governance, ensuring that every software update to a vehicle over its lifetime enhances reliability rather than introducing fragility into an already complex system.
Awesome. What about you, Jonathan?
Yeah, well, just building on what John has said, really, I think it's going to be the year for trust. When you turn the steering wheel on a normal vehicle, you can see the column move, you can feel the wheels move. When you press the brake, you can feel that, and you know that there's a backup system there, which is going to be mechanical. That in the event electronics fails, is still going to give you some control, and you trust your own driving ability. If you close your eyes or you let go of the steering wheel, you sit back and you let the car do the work for you, then you've got to trust the car, and you're trusting this very abstract thing, which is software. You can't see the software, you don't know who wrote it. These days it's written by lots and lots of people that are distributed around the globe, and not all of them work directly for the manufacturer of the vehicle. So you're trusting people in different parts of the world who you've never met, you're never going to meet, to have made the right choices with your life. And it's a determination that you've got to make. And hopefully we can get it right, and we can continue this long history of trust that the automotive industry has built, and we don't make people frightened to let go of the steering wheel, because obviously we want to sell more exciting products with these features in them, because they certainly assist with all kinds of mobility, not just the drudgery of the daily commute, but blind people can now have some mobility. And there will be a parent who elects to put their child in the back seat of the car to send them to sleep. And someone will make that decision, and they will have to base that on some level of trust. And we've got to build that trust.
Definitely. So I kind of want to move it over to John. I know you already mentioned some of the unique, what's unique about engineering for automotive in 2025. I wanted to dive a little bit more into how CodeThink is addressing challenges like complexity, reliability, and adaptability in these modern vehicles.
Yeah, sure. So from CodeThink's perspective, for us, especially starting 2025, but broadly moving forward, automotive software is no longer just about features, right? Building on what Jonathan said previously, I mean, there are features, but beyond just features, it's about trust. Modern vehicles today are rolling data centers, millions and upon millions of lines of code that cross boundaries between safety critical, real time, even AI-driven systems. And so, from CodeThink's perspective, we always ask, why do you trust software? For us, the challenge isn't, we think, just complexity. It's ensuring, in the case of the vehicle, software-defined vehicles, that they don't become software-defined liabilities. So for us at CodeThink, we embed transparency, auditability, and evidence-based engineering into every layer of software construction and integration. We call this the trustable software framework. Our almost fully automated approach, we're working on it, not quite there yet, but it's almost fully automated, includes rigorous contract governance, verifiable metrics, associated evidence, and deep supply chain visibility to prevent the house of cards effect, where one weak link can cause systemic failure. For us, we believe that how we work can be beneficial to many. And so recently, at CES, we announced that we joined the Eclipse Foundation as a strategic member. We committed to move all of our trustable work, this trustable software framework, the documentation, our tooling, the processes into the open. And we made our first contribution and introduced our first contribution last week during FOSDEM, a European open source conference, one of the largest in the world. For us, ultimately, at the end of the day, trustable software isn't just about a compliance; it's about provable reliability at scale. So that's how CodeThink kind of looks at this topic.
Awesome. And then, Jonathan, as vehicles are becoming more connected and autonomous, how do you see the current standards evolving by 2025 or even beyond to address the needs of the market?
Yeah, well, they won't. That is the problem with international standards. The key standard isn't planned for an update until 2027.
Mm.
And this will be long after the problem's been solved. And maybe what we've learned between now and then might make it into the 2034 edition of the standard, because the international standards are not where the innovation takes place. There's no guidance on AI. There's no guidance on hugely complex software. John mentioned the data center on wheels. That's a very good analogy. It's a tremendous amount of software, and the standard is still stuck in a 1980s model of computing. The semiconductor guidance is woefully out of date for the silicon being used even today. And much of what's written in the standard is incomplete, it's contradictory, it's distributed across multiple documents, it's difficult to access, difficult to get feedback on. We couldn't make the international standards less useful to the target audience, the people who need the information. But that is the status quo, and unfortunately, nobody seems to want to change that.
Wow.
I mean, Jonathan, it's even, I mean, Tira, I don't know if you know this, but to what Jonathan just talked about, not only is everything what Jonathan said true, but the standards themselves cost, an exorbitant amount of money. If I want to read the standard that Jonathan calls out, as out of date as it may be, it's still $1,750 US for me to get a copy myself. The parent standard is like $4,000, and unfortunately, the business model doesn't allow me to share them, even within my company. So not only does Jonathan point that out, like we also have this other business model issue that just truly stifles any desire to truly try and even understand what is even considered safe by the out of date version of safe.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it's almost like the standards. Imagine there's a core of 2 people in every company that needs access to the standard. But of course, what they've specified is activities that need thousands of people. And when you've got to license standards for thousands of people, that cost is of course significant. And they'll of course argue for a safety standard. Well, there's no price on safety. But the problem is there is a price on safety. If you make it too difficult to access the standards, then the people making the decisions don't get the state-of-the-art information. And that's something that people contributing to standards should be ashamed of.
So, this question will be for both of you, of course. How do you see the collaboration between software engineers and functional safety experts evolving in this space? And kind of to double down, are there any disconnects today between the two disciplines that need to be bridged for vehicles of 2025 and beyond?
Yeah, we've been arguing as Exeter for many years that having a silo within your organization of safety engineers or cybersecurity engineers, a group of people that may as well have the word no written on their door because they're there to prevent business, is no good. People that focus on processes and procedures and audits and assessments, things that have very little to do with safety, but some interpretation of the standard says we have to do this, is terrible for safety. We need to break these silos down. We've been arguing for and working with some very successful teams that don't create these departments, but embed safety with the engineering teams and get them to focus on solving the technical problems of safety. And we'll worry about the procedures and the processes and the audits later. Let's solve the technical challenges first. Let's make sure we've got an argument that we can articulate that we've done sufficient engineering with our software and our hardware. And then if there's time, start thinking about all these other activities.
Yeah, and I mean, just everything that Jonathan just said, plus one. And I just might also add that your question here was like, how do we see the collaboration evolving? I mean, embedding to what, as Jonathan said, I think is definitely a first step. What in our experience coming as a software firm is many of those in the role of functional safety are very trained in safety traditionally, but unknowing of what unknowing of what software is, and unknowing of the challenges of modern day software, constructing software at scale, integrating software from 30 different parties at scale, and then ensuring delivery continuously to target hardware. And then again, the idea of being able to do this continuously over time, especially as the rules and regulations are going to be requiring vehicles to be touched and constantly sort of verified over time. So I think the evolution will be in, the best collaboration will be software engineers learning the questions to ask themselves, the thought exercises that safety engineers go through every day, but to bring that into software development, construction, and design. And I think on the flip side is, safety engineers will start learning more about software. And we'll see a blend, we'll see a meld where safety engineers really are, integrated into the software environment from day one, ground up, as opposed to being asked a question remotely, giving an opinion, and then going back to the office.
Awesome. So just to close this out a little bit, I kind of want to know for each of you, what's one takeaway that you would want listeners to remember about the future of automotive technology and safety from your perspective?
Yeah, well, we've had decades of trust from the public and from government and a long history of self-regulation. We're not like the airline industry where you have to go and get a certificate from the government to fly your aircraft. We can, for the most part, provide evidence ourselves that we've done our due diligence, followed state of the art. And that's been tremendously helpful. But the standards have failed. Recalls are increasing exponentially and have been since the first edition of the standard was published. And a recall by definition is safety related. Doesn't matter whether the software is being updated over the air or whether you're taking it into the garage for a module swap, a recall is being done because of safety. And if you add to that the continuing unacceptable rate of death from people who insist on testing prototype hardware and software on the public roads, again, this is a deviation. For the longest time, automotive companies have been performing the testing on a private proving ground with separation controls between the prototypes and the people. And the new growth of developers, the startup companies that are doing automation, think it's okay to take a new piece of code and begin the testing in the real world on unsuspecting people. just on the basis of some simulation runs that are probably not even close to the real world stresses or complexity. And people are dying as a result of that. And if we're not careful, we are going to get a reaction from the legislative groups within the world, people who are concerned about loved ones dying, and our wonderful self-regulation model is going to come under attack, and we're going to find our innovation will have to slow down, our costs will increase, and we'll have to do a lot more work to persuade an independent third party of what we've done, rather than the status quo today, which is to go through a route of self-regulation where people look after the due diligence purely for brand reputation and maybe a bit of liability protection. And that's a real danger, I think, in automotive.
Definitely. Very well said.
Yeah, I love being partnered with Jonathan, because it's always for me an easy just +1 for that one. But the maybe some additional color I might add is fundamentally the question is, why do you trust software, or do you trust software, and why? And I think the automotive industry, as Jonathan pointed out, has done a very good job over the years, self-policing, self-regulating. But we're getting into a point now where the automotive industry is not the automotive industry of yesteryear. New arrivals, new people, new companies, new entrants, new ideas, new modes of transportation, all kind of pushing into the public right of way. And ultimately, at the very end of the day, the idea that the society is so dependent on software-enabled products, I think should give everyone pause, right? Not just in the automotive industry, but banks, or reactors, power plants, everything from sometimes even toothbrushes. So for us at CodeThink, we believe deeply in challenging our customer base, our client base, the public, our peers. Why do we trust software? And then trying to answer that, in a manner by which we challenge the engineering of software to rise up a bit, and to become more diligent in being able to provide the evidence for a statement and a claim that we make regularly and consistently about the software that we develop and release into the world.
Very transparent and real perspective on the automotive industry. I really appreciate it. It's very refreshing.
You're welcome. Hopefully, you're still going to get into a car. Hopefully, you're not so afraid, right? Because we're still doing a good job. We can do better, and I think that's the key message that Jonathan and I try to deliver to people.
Thanks for listening to this edition of Embedded Insiders. For more daily news, videos, and podcasts, visit our website at embeddedcomputing.com.